I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's July 3rd, 2024, regular session of the Schertz Planning and Zoning Commission. Item number 1 on the agenda was called to order. Item number 2 is a seat alternate to active required. We have Commissioner Craig seated this evening. Hearing of residents. We have 4 people signed up tonight, and they all want to talk about what are going to turn out to be public hearings. Okay. So you have options here. You can speak now and again during the public hearing, or you can wait and speak during the public hearing after you've heard the presentations. The choice is entirely up to you. In any case, hearing of residents, this time is set aside for any person who wishes to address the Planning and Zoning Commission. Each person should fill out the speaker's register prior to the meeting. Presentation should be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Discussion by the commission of any item not on the agenda shall be limited to statements of specific factual information given in response to any inquiry, a recitation of existing policy in response to an inquiry, and/or a proposal to place the item on a future agenda. The presiding officer during the hearing of residents portion of the agenda will call on those persons who have signed up to speak in the order they have registered. Adam Sharp.
Yeah, so I'm going to go afterwards as well. We can do both, correct?
Yes, you can. Please name and address for the record.
Adam Sharp, 2233 Dead Hill. On the private road next to the rezoning. I've got a little packet here. Mr. Haas was kind enough to give you one of the sheets that I presented. Can I give you this? So in that packet I gave you, like I said, the second sheet Mr. Haas provided. Sheet 1, I believe, is part of the UDC code. When the application went through to the planning department, Mr. Densberger submitted that he owned the road. Now this is clearly based on sheet 2 that road kind of migrates between both properties. And so that's one of our big pushbacks is my house is platted as a subdivision with the city of Schertz. So my sole single acre is platted as a subdivision, and that's my only means of access egress. And I was given a variance for that in 2018. So I just would like to take a moment and for y'all to look at that and kind of see what we're dealing with as far as access egress for a multifamily development to 35. Thank you.
Nicole Sharp. Okay. Is this Sandra Ott? Okay. Mark Tudyk.
Good evening, sir. I live on 18940 Old Wiederstein Road. This project, this whole rezoning project, is basically a rehash of a project that was attempted and failed earlier, and it represents no need, or it represents as filling no need of the community, and it has no support of the community. And I am here to express my opposition to this current plan for rezoning.
All right, thank you, sir. Did we have any emails or texts or anything? No. All right. Item number 4 is our consent agenda. We have a single item, minutes for the June 5th, 2024 regular meeting. Commissioners, do this item need to be pulled for discussion? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda from Commissioner Bro and a second from Commissioner Goldick. No discussion on consent agenda. Please record your votes. All right, I have 6 votes. Would you publish that, please? All right, 6 ayes, none opposed. That motion passes. Item number 5, public hearings. We have 3 public hearings this evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing related to zone change requests, specific use permit requests, and Unified Development Code amendments within this agenda. The public hearing will be open to receive a report from staff, the applicant, the adjoining property owners affected by the applicant's request, and any other interested persons. Upon completion, the public hearing will be closed. The commission will discuss and consider the application and may request additional information from staff or the applicant if required. After deliberation, the commission is asked to consider and act upon the following requests and make a recommendation to the city council if necessary. All right, so the procedure for each one of these is we'll start with a presentation by staff. If the applicant at that time chooses to make a presentation, we'll hear from them. After that's done, I will open the floor for public input. Anyone that wants to address the commission on that particular issue is welcome to step up to the podium. Name and address for the record, please, in 3 minutes. And then after we hear from you folks, I will close that and the commission will then discuss the issue. So we start off with item number A, ELZC 2024, many numbers here, 0141. Hold a public hearing and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 38.8 acres of land from single-family residential / agricultural district to apartment / multifamily district, known as Guadalupe County Property Identification Number 68294, 68295, 68296, 68302, 68303, 68315, and 68316, generally located 1,100 feet to the west of the FM 2252 and IH 35 intersection, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas. Sam?
There we go. Thank you, Commissioners. PLZC 2024-0141, zone change from general business and single-family residential agricultural RA to apartment multifamily residential R4. Samuel Haas, Senior Planner. To get our bearings here, the property is outlined in green. You'll see to the north here is IH 35. Down here to the south is Old Wiederstein, and we have Freeway Manor over here to the east. The property is approximately 38 acres. The existing use currently is residential and undeveloped. On June 21st, a total of 21 public hearing notices were sent out. There has been 13 oppositions received and 8 in favor. 2 signs were also posted on the property, one along IH 35 here and one along Old Wiederstein as well. So as mentioned before, the existing zoning is general business. There's a sliver of general business right here, and then the rest is single-family residential RA, and the proposed zoning is apartment multifamily residential R4. A little background on this. The applicant previously requested a zone change on the same property. That previous request was around 18 acres. This current one is 38. They've added 20 acres to that. On September 13th, 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval with a 7-0 vote. The request was denied on October 10th, 2023 at City Council with a 5-2 vote due to the supermajority of the requirement. Unified Development Code Section 2154C5 states that after a City Council denial, the applicant must wait 6 months before coming back in with the same request. And just to clarify here, the previous request did not, basically this whole section right here where my cursor is, was not included in the previous one. It was just these properties here and then also this property as well. So they have added this section here to this request. So for zoning changes, we look at UDC section 2154D for the criteria for approval. And I'll just go through these one by one. So number one, whether the proposed zone change or zoning map amendment implements the policies of the adopted comprehensive land plan, including the land use classification of the property on the future land use map. So the comprehensive land plan designates this area as a mixed use center. It is intended to integrate denser residential, commercial, and often entertainment spaces nearby, typically along significant transportation corridors. This apartment multifamily district would conform to the land use designation in the comprehensive plan, as it specifically calls for the denser residential. And the property abuts 2 transportation corridors. And this is what it looks like on the comprehensive plan. You'll see the property outlined in yellow, and it is within this mixed use center designation. Number 2, whether the proposed zone change or zoning map amendment promotes the health, safety, or general welfare of the city and the safe, orderly, efficient, and healthful development of the city. So in order to ensure safe and orderly and efficient development and the expansion of the city, apartment multifamily districts should not be located in areas where they would increase traffic through single-family neighborhoods and should be located adjacent to arterial streets with sufficient capacity to carry the increased traffic. The property is not adjacent to any large single-family neighborhoods, and as mentioned before, it is adjacent to IH-35 and Old Wiederstein to the south, which Old Wiederstein is classified as a secondary arterial. I'll speak more on that later. Whether the use is permitted by the proposed zone change in the zoning district classification and the standards applicable to such uses will be appropriate in the immediate area of the land to be reclassified. So the area right now is defined by undeveloped land, rural-like residences, commercial businesses, and a large mixed-use development that includes multifamily, currently under construction just to the west. The uses permitted within this zoning district would align with what's happening in the wider area. Additionally, Article 9 of the UDC is in place to ensure that any negative impacts on the residences in the area are mitigated. Number 4, whether the proposed zone change is in accord with any existing or proposed plans for providing public schools, streets, water supply, sanitary sewer, or other public services and utilities to the area. So as I mentioned before, the master thoroughfare plan, the property currently abuts the IH-35 freeway, Old Wiederstein to the south, which is a secondary arterial. And also in the master thoroughfare plan, there is a future east-west connector classified as a residential collector that's running through portions of the property, as well as a future north-south connector that's classified as a secondary arterial. You'll see this is a snippet from the master thoroughfare plan. The property is outlined in green. And this is that east-west residential collector that runs through portions of the property. And this is that future north-south arterial that's running through portions of the property. And there's Old Wiederstein and the freeway as well. Continuing with number 4, for the water utilities in the area, there's a 12-inch water line that runs along IH-35. There's also a 16-inch water line that runs through portions of the property currently. There's an 8-inch, for sewer, there's an 8-inch line approximately 900 feet to the west in the neighboring property. There's also a 24-inch sewer line that runs along Dean Road, 200 foot, that's approximately 200 feet south of the property. The applicant is required to connect to adequate utility facilities per the Unified Development Code Article 15, and a more detailed engineering review will recur at the time of the platting process. A public hearing notice was mailed to SCUCISD to notify of the proposed zone change. Schertz Fire, EMS, and police departments were notified of the zone change, and they have provided no objections. Number 5, whether there have been environmental or economical changes which warrant the requested change. No, there have not. Number 6, whether there is an error in the original zoning. There was no error in the original zoning. Number 7, whether all applicants' back taxes are owed. This does not impact the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation to City Council at this time. And whether other criteria are met which, at the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council, are deemed relevant and important in consideration of this amendment. Staff has ensured that all UDC requirements have been met for the proposed zone change, and at this time have not received any special consideration from the Planning and Zoning Commission or from City Council. So, staff recommendation, the zone change request does conform with the comprehensive plan. It meets the intent of the UDC. It aligns with what's happening in the wider area, and it adheres to the criteria for approval. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of PLZC 2024-0141. And I believe that the applicant is here as well.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. Ashley Fairmont with Killen Griffin and Fairmont, 10101 Reunion Place, San Antonio, Texas. Nice to see you all, and thank you, Sam, for the report and a little bit of history on this property. Not all of you may have been here last fall, but I think most of you were, when the Commission considered the zoning change request for just the 20 acres or so in the center of this piece. And since that time, we have added additional property, about 18 acres or so, fronting on Old Wiederstein, and the comprehensive plan has been updated. So there have been some changes that I'll walk through. Just a little bit of information, I'm sure you all are aware, but just a quick summary of what's happening in the area. So from 3009 up to this property, obviously there's some Cibolo Crossing in the city of Cibolo. Schertz Station is currently under construction. That is a large mixed-use project, primarily commercial, but also has a housing component, a multifamily housing component, single-family rentals. Obviously, EVO, the frontage of business uses along I-35, and some of those will be changing. I know you all considered a zoning change that failed for existing business on 35, so that property will be changing, and there should be new investment coming in that area. The star here is obviously what we're asking for, the change of zoning, and adjacent to that is the large school district property. So here's the current zoning map. As Sam showed you, the property is currently single-family residential agricultural district, just some of that surrounding zoning, the GB on the frontage of 35, and adjacent to the property where you see those paper lots, there's no homes. And then the PDD for Schertz Station, it's a little hard to see on here too, but the school district property is zoned light industrial or industrial. The comprehensive plan. So I'm sure you all are very familiar, you considered it and obviously adopted it. But this whole area has the mixed use corridor designation, and that is a change that happened since the last time you considered this. And just to walk through some of the goals of that plan, to encourage mixed use development to create vibrant, walkable neighborhoods and commercial and retail areas with access to amenities within close proximity. So we think the addition of housing here would be walkable, drivable on a day like today, more realistic, but very close to those new amenities that are coming at Schertz Station. Also, expanding housing options at different price ranges for all. So this is 38 acres of R4 zoning, and the idea here is to provide a couple different housing types, options, primarily, more than likely, rentals, but looking at the different price ranges and catering to different salaries and different area median income. We're also looking at partnering with the Housing Trust on a portion of this property to provide some workforce housing in this side of town. Also, obviously, accommodating population growth, which I know you hear all the time, but people are moving to Schertz, moving to the area, and we think this is a good location with access to 35 and Old Wiederstein. Again, mixed use center, the combination of the higher density housing types, live, work, play, as you hear, and then the transportation corridors. The master thoroughfare plan, as Sam mentioned, there are 2 major roads that will be built are on the way. So Rips Chrysler is being extended from Cibolo Valley through Schertz Station, that's under construction. And then the alignment of this is slightly different, but this is the master thoroughfare plan. In reality, it's being shifted slightly. But then Rips Chrysler would come up to this property, providing one access point. Another access point and why also the property on Old Wiederstein, the JSIC track was added, those 18 acres, was also to allow for the north-south connector, at least portion of it, to be built. As you all know, roads get built with development, and that's what this project would be doing, would be building roads for access to this site and then hopefully, further connectivity up to 35. So here's another exhibit just showing the roadway connection. I included this so you could see what the extension of Rips Chrysler would likely look like. It's probably going to curve slightly into the school district property. It's probably not going to run right along that property line, but that's where that connection would be. And here's an idea of a site plan. So we have the 20 acres or so with that first connection from Rips Chrysler on the top. So that would be a primary access point for that piece, with the secondary access of that piece coming from Old Wiederstein. And then you see the property, the 18 acres or so with that site plan, with the primary access being from Old Wiederstein. And these are roads that would be built along with the project. I did want to include this because, as you've already heard, and I think you're going to hear tonight, comments about Den Ott, which is a private roadway that extends from I-35 to this property. This is a survey that exists showing both tracks and showing the ownership of a 30-foot strip to 35. Again, this would be a third access point to the property, and I know roads and disputes over maybe ownership or access are not necessarily what you all will consider when discussing and reviewing a zoning change, but I did want to bring it up because it will be coming up tonight. Here is, since the last time, we have had a survey report prepared, and just wanted to highlight some of this. This is just regarding and confirming access and ownership of that strip to 35. So what I've highlighted here is that just says during the course of the survey, we found that the 0.982 acre tract, being a portion of the 19.8 acres, that's the big chunk in the middle, had a 30-foot direct frontage to I-35. And then the conclusion of this just says that having found that there is actual fee ownership interest and easement estate interest would give access to I-35. I have determined that this tract of land is not landlocked and has direct access to I-35. So that strip, there's 30 feet there. There is an adjacent property too, owned by other property owners. But there is a driveway there, and there's no intent to cut anyone off from using that driveway. If there are concerns with how that easement is used, there is a 30-foot strip that is owned by the property owner requesting zoning tonight by Mr. Dinsberger. And so that 30-foot strip, a new pavement could be put there and have a separate driveway. So I know that there will be comments about that drive, but we have also showed you and demonstrated there will be 2 other access points to this property. And again, here's the site plan showing conceptually what the layout would look like and the connections of those roadways. And again, I know this is not a PDD request, and you know, I know those come up often here, or maybe you want them to come up less often. So just so you know, it is something that we explored for this property, the idea of not asking for variances for the project, but adding additional restrictions to the project. And I think, you know, in working with staff and the messaging from this commission and from council is that kind of moving forward, the idea of PDDs would be for kind of very unique projects. And this is pretty straightforward housing. So that, just so you're aware, that is an option that we did look at to provide some additional buffering guarantees and things like that. But ultimately it was determined that R4 was the best route to go. So that's one site, and here's the second site. Traditional housing, and then some townhome type product fronting on Old Wiederstein, so the density kind of tapers off. Just some ideas of how it could look. And this is the same rendering that you all saw before. So I have lots of renderings. I know, again, that's not what you're considering, so I won't go through them all, but happy to discuss more about the project and just request that you recommend approval tonight. And if there are any questions, I am happy to answer them and provide comment after the public comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fairmont. All right, it is 6:25 p.m., and at this time, I'll open the floor for public input. Anyone wishing to address the commission on this topic is welcome to step forward to the microphone. Please give your name and address for the record, and try to keep your remarks to 3 minutes.
Nicole Sharp, 2233 Den Ott Hill. Okay, in number 8 of the agenda, staff has ensured all UDC requirements have been met for the proposed zone change. Per the UDC code, section 21.5.5E, for multifamily R4, the applicant is required to establish the adequacy of available access. There's not access to 35. This is a small strip of land, as you saw on the Pape Dawson survey, that is at its widest 31.88 feet and the narrowest section 20.95 feet. This would not meet any road requirements for the city, which therefore there is not adequacy of available access. 21.55E also states should be located adjacent to arterial streets with sufficient capacity to carry the increased traffic generated. Without access to the arterial road, which is clear on the surveys and the Guadalupe appraisal maps, this, as you guys have, this request should be denied. You can claim that access is not important to platting, but the UDC code and the city council said otherwise. We ask that you do not go against your own UDC code and the city council's prior decision for one developer. Also, some of the proposed roads that they were showing literally run through our house. Like, I mean, I know they're proposed, but I mean, you're basing a lot of this on proposed roads that were maybe gonna happen and that will possibly happen, and proposed arterial roads. That arterial road is not accessible, so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Sandra Ott. I live at 2305 Den Ott Hill. This is the second time in 9 months that my neighbors and I have had to come before the zoning board to fight the same rezoning request. 9 months ago, you all voted to not rezone the land in question for several legitimate reasons. Most importantly, the fact that Den Ott Hill is a private road. The land sellers tell you they own the road, but we have provided the deed and a private road agreement to prove they in fact do not own the road, and as such have no right to convey ownership. My neighbors and I rely on this small, narrow private road as the only access to our property. We did not desire to sell our road 9 months ago, and we are not selling it today. We remain concerned about the environmental conditions that may exist on the property. We know the land has been used as a dump in the past, and we worry the developer may uncover hazardous materials or even underground storage tanks. We again implore the broker, current landowner, and our developer to ensure they have hired a professional engineer to perform an inspection and produce a Phase 1 environmental report. Any potential leader or investor would likely require this as a condition of investment in any development on this land, so it's not unreasonable for us to ask this. Furthermore, the only communication we have had regarding the rezoning request and potential development is from the city. If apartments were going to be built in your front yard, at a minimum, you'd want to be assured your private road will not be taken or used. There will be no environmental risk to you and your family as a result of the development, and the developer will build his high density and community in a way that doesn't ruin your family's enjoyment of your rural single-family property. You'd want information about the development plans. Will there be tall buildings up against my front yard limiting my privacy? Will lights be shining in my yard? What will be done to prevent increased vandalism or crime? Will the development cause changes to drainage patterns and flood my property? Are there plans for providing public schools, streets, water supply, sewers, or other public services and utilities to the area? We have been kept in the dark and can only wonder what the plans are made that will negatively impact our daily lives and our property values. We understand the city's only source of revenue is taxes, and rezoning historically ag-exempt land to multifamily would generate significant revenue for the city. But it is very short-sighted to assume all multifamily developers are equal. The developer who has a contract to purchase and develop the land is inexperienced and unproven. He didn't show up at the last rezoning hearing, and he likely won't show up to this rezoning hearing. So you can't ask him about his track record or even his plans for the property. What little I've found out about him is that he is a recent college graduate from Long Island. I'm almost done. Can I finish? From Long Island with 0 apartment development experience. He appears to remodel single-family homes with his father. After years of being marketed for sale by one of the best land brokers in South Texas, we must ask ourselves, why is this only buyer interested in this land? If this was such a slam dunk site for apartments, Why aren't local developers like Embry Development or Darren Casey making offers? The condition that caused you to vote against the request 9 months ago remains unchanged. This hearing is a retread of the same request. My neighbors and I ask you again to decline the request to rezone the property in question. Thank you.
I feel the need to clarify something really quick. No, this is just in general. This issue goes to two, planning and zoning tonight, okay? Now, I was not here, but the commission as a whole recommended approval of this project back in September of last year. It was city council that denied it. And I just wanted to make sure that you understand that, okay? Sorry, come on up.
My name is Gloria Ott Densberger. I live at 2229 Denot Hill. I am 1/4 owner of the Ott property that includes a portion of Den Ott Hill. I am opposed to the rezoning and will not allow any part of my land to be used for the applicant's development. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is James Ott. I'm at 2217 Denot Hill, and I am also 1/4 owner of the Ott property that includes a portion of the Denot Hill. I am opposed to the rezoning and will not allow any part of my land to be used for the applicant's development.
Hi, Harold James Densberger, 2229 Denot Hill. Same name that's on the application. He's my twin brother, just in case you're wondering. So, October 2023, planning and zoning, y'all voted on the 20 acres, 7-0, sent it to the city. The city denied the application based on the developer had no means for ingress and egress. They claimed that they had a right to use the Denot Hill. They don't. As it was pointed out, there's areas where they own less than 20 feet. So how they're going to get that through, I don't know. But the city council denied it, saying you can't helicopter in there so that you have no means of ingress and egress unless they use those other two means that she spoke about. As the Otts stated, they own part of the road. Some areas majority, some areas less. So why are we here again rehashing this? They don't meet your UDC code for ingress and egress. Again, the Otts, the Densbergers don't own, he does not, the representative does not own all of the road, partial of the road, and there's a private road easement filed with Guadalupe County in 1949, volume 236, pages 230 and 234. And in that easement states, in the easement agreement, it is permanent and perpetual. And there's other agreements that can be provided to city council or whoever, if they need them, that says that the road cannot be modified, changed in grade, or anything else without all landowners agreeing to it. So those documents are available through the county. We can provide them if they're needed. So we built our houses up there. My house, better than 35 years ago. We bought the land from my father-in-law, Mr. Ott. We built our house, and we plan on dying in that house. But when we bought it, we had the expectation that we have a means for ingress and egress for the rest of our life. And if you allow them to take our road, we have no ingress and egress. And it destroys where we live if you turn it into a public road, which is basically what they're going to do. So I appreciate your time.
So just to kind of reiterate, 2233 Denot Hill, Adam Sharp. Sorry about that. Just as Ms. Fremont showed you, the width of the road is 30 feet, right? I do development. I'm building the Saddlebrook project out there, and we don't have a road that's 30 foot wide. Nowhere's on there, and these roads are proposed. They're future roads, and they're not saying that they're going to build the roads or they're going to put funds in to widen Old Wiederstein Road, or that they're going to build from the school district, that they're going to build that Rips Kishner Road. They're not going to provide any funds for that. So why would they be allowed to rezone this? It doesn't meet the UDC codes, and they're not doing anything to help expand the property north or south as far as the road goes. Again, 30 feet's not wide enough to build any road in the city of Schertz. So I hope you take that into consideration and deny this rezoning. Thank you.
Howdy, how we doing tonight? I'm going to break up the train on one side to give you a different take on it.
Excuse me, sir, I need your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is John Jasic, and I am a long-term resident and property owner of 19018 Old Wiederstein Road, which is one of the properties in question that we're talking about today. I have been in this area for over 55 years, and I've seen the dramatic change that's happened in the I-35 corridor in the last 5 decades. Nothing short of incredible. You know, first of all, I want to state that I truly do empathize with everyone who stood up here to protest this property rezoning. I understand the desire to keep their road, and we can talk about that in a bit, but more importantly, to keep their area isolated and secluded from development. That is their own piece of heaven, and they do not want it developed. And I understand that. I, too, yearn for the days when I grew up here where this area was truly rural and surprisingly relatively remote. It took us 20 minutes to go to the grocery store back in the day. The nearest building on any corner of I-35 in 3009 was Country Corner. It was a restaurant. There was one building there at that time period. Look at what's happening now. My grandparents lived right there at I-35 and FM 3009, and now we have Starbucks there, right? So, you know, my point of saying this is, you know, we've farmed and ranched this area off Dean Road, where all these houses are, whether it's Willow Point, whether it's Lantana, or whether it's all these developments have gone in. The time to try to keep our area rural and country, that time passed us by. We should have stopped that a long time ago, 30 years ago, when Northcliffe first was proposed, for those that know Northcliffe, or when we sold, where the Jonas property sold and became Belmont Park, or when Willow Point came in there, or the Voigt property sold and became Lantana Development. Like right now, the area is not rural anymore, but we are smack dab in the middle of a major metropolitan area. And you know what? Cities build houses. Cities build Starbucks. Santico's movie theater right down the road. The Willie's Ice House is right down the road. Heck, we even got a Dunkin' Donuts right there now. And you know, and lastly, cities also developed apartments and they develop townhomes. It's what cities do. It's just, it all goes together. So let me just close this with this last thought. This is a naturally beautiful area with good schools, good climate, good infrastructure, and relatively low relatively low cost of living, and all the conveniences that anybody could ever want. The area should not be restricted for the privileged few landowners to monopolize, but opened up for everyone to enjoy and live in from all walks of life. Therefore, I strongly support this rezoning application, and it is correct for where this general area is in its urban life cycle. And as with respect to the road that we keep going on back and forth, I wish we could resolve it, but apparently we can't. My understanding is, talking to the developer that's trying to put together, that he has committed to Rips Chrysler extension. Now, it may or may not be, but my understanding is he's committed to putting the Rips Chrysler extension in, which gives him the access. He now has access to the Old Wiederstein Road, so he's got ingress and egress. The whole 30-foot, 20-foot, 10-foot, again, I'm a layman, I'm not involved in this, but I've been listening to it now for a year. That to me seems to be a legal issue that will be resolved through time, but it becomes a red herring for all of us because we keep on getting tied up on it. they have ingress and egress from two different ways that are major thoroughfares. So to me, I keep hearing this. I feel like I'm in a time warp where deja vu, we keep hearing the same thing again. But they have an ingress and egress point that has nothing to do with this 20-foot road or 10-foot or 30-foot. And frankly, that becomes a legal issue that I'm sure our courts will love to sort out at some point in time. But it's a red herring for us. At least that's my relatively uninformed third-party view of the whole thing. I appreciate you guys listening to me, and I strongly support it. Thank you.
Good evening to the commissioners and to everyone in attendance tonight. My name is Noreen Baker. I live in Austin, but I am brother to John, so I grew up on the property at 19018 Old Wiederstein Road. And I would, have a few things that I would like to add to the discussion tonight. First of all, I would just like to say that I also fully support the rezoning application and agree with the comments made by my brother. And I would just like to say, kind of keeping in with his theme, is that, yeah, it's true. My family wishes that our property and the surrounding property, was unchanged from our childhood days. I wish it still was the way it was. But, unfortunately, that's not realistic, and it's not current reality, and it never will be that way again. Things change. Very few things ever remain the same, and this is no different. What I would like to say is that, I think it's, that assuming that a well-planned, well-constructed, multifamily community will automatically negatively affect your neighborhood and be a bad neighbor and somehow a negative thing is a little bit, unfounded and a little bit unfair. And I would just ask and hope that instead the current area neighborhoods would find a way to be welcoming to their new neighbors and the new development, just as we were when many of them arrived in the area back in the day when it was just us and two other people on Wiederstein Road. So thank you for your time and your consideration.
My name is Brenda Ott, and I live at 2217 Den-Ott Hill. I have one question that maybe you can't answer, but when we had the last city council meeting, the developer took that little strip of road that we have an issue with, they took that off of the request for rezoning. And nobody ever explained why they did that. It was turned down, but nobody said, developer, why did you take that little strip that we are all having problems with? That road was never meant to be multi-use with 300 units and people that live in it. It is, has anyone here been up that road and seen how narrow it is? They do not have enough space to make a road, much less for us to get in and out. We have issues already, and I saw up there, but as Sam said, emergency services, police didn't have a problem with that. Well, you know what? We have emergencies up there in the past, and they do have issues coming up that road, just with the traffic that we have from 35 and the developments in the area. Sometimes I can't even get out of my road. I have to backtrack and say, oh, I need to wait a couple hours if I don't want to spend 30 minutes to get to HEB. So I would ask that planning and zoning members that have not been up that road, that you look at it. It is not meant for multifamily. And I personally wanted to be neutral. Everyone has a need for housing, for apartments. And I really don't have an issue with that, but I have an issue with everybody using the private road that we own portions to. And that's what I have to say. Thank you for being here.
Anyone else? Going once? Twice? Nobody? All right, it is 6:50. 6:44 PM, and the public input portion is closed. Commissioners, comments or questions?
I got one. I want to hear more about the north-south connector and the east-west connector again. Can you rehash that? Once again, as far as it's part of the planned development that we're going to have, and I don't know if Ms. Fairmont can kind of go over that again. I would like to hear more about that in detail.
Yeah, so I can speak a little to the city side of things. If your property has a planned future route on it, as according to the master thoroughfare plan, you are required to dedicate right-of-way and oftentimes develop that route. So, yeah, so it basically, how that all lays out is done later in the process, right? I mean, we're here deciding really, you know, the appropriateness of an R4 district at this time, right? But I will say that, you know, engineering, public works, they all review this, and if there is master thoroughfare plan routes on the property, then typically those get developed with development of the property. Anything you want to add, or?
I can, sorry, can I exit out of here?
You want to go to your presentation?
Great, thank you. So this is the city's map on the major thoroughfare plan connections. What we've worked on with them is exactly where those road connections will be, because that map is an idea, right? So they've shifted a little bit from the previous exhibit. But, well. So what you see here is the connection from Old Wiederstein. That's a secondary arterial, I believe. So this is 90 feet of right-of-way. So they're required, when they come into plat, to dedicate a portion of the right-of-way. And what it's shifted is to where it's along the property line and in line with 2252. So they would be required to dedicate and then required to build. And I know there was a comment about not having to pay for that, but the city has roadway impact fees, and then, or they can require you to dedicate and construct right-of-way. And so this would more than likely, in working with the city, be a dedication of right-of-way and a construction of right-of-way. That come with it. And then the Rips Chrysler is a slightly smaller road, but that would be, I believe it's a 60-foot right-of-way, and that extension would come through the school district property.
I'm sorry, how does it impact the private road? And what's the name of that road?
Den Ott is the name of the private road.
Okay, so how does that impact Den Ott?
So Den Ott, and that's where it gets obviously a little complicated, and I think there's a difference of opinions on who owns that right-of-way. So there's two strips of right-of-way, and they're owned by different owners, but there is an access agreement on using that right-of-way. So Den Ott is there. There's a driveway there now. And the idea would be possibly to use the 30 feet that are owned by the person, by Mr. Dinsberger requesting the zoning. You know, there's a lot of similar names. So there is a 30-foot strip that is owned. But there is a requirement on access and an easement agreement between the two parties. So access can't be denied to the homeowners in the area. So, but again, that would be a third access point. You know, there's been a lot of confusion, questions, and ongoing, and there probably, I'm sure there will be after tonight, after council, on how that roadway is used and who can do what. But we wouldn't be requesting zoning of that piece if it wasn't owned by Mr. Dinsberger. We can't legally do that. And so that's why we included it. There was also questions about why it wasn't included before. We didn't include it before for sake of confusion, but there's confusion in that way, there's confusion this way, so there's a lot of questions about that piece, and so that's why we worked with the JSIC tract in terms of making sure there were two other access points to this property, and that's what's required by code, is the two access points.
I could probably, I'd also like to add to that, you know, if there's an easement on the property, there's essentially a hold on that property, right? Regardless of the zoning. So if there is a private access easement on this property, which there is, obviously is, then whether it's zoned which way or the other doesn't matter. That's still going to be a private access easement. So just thought I'd throw that in there.
You're saying that the current road, the current private road that's there is going to remain?
It's going to remain a private access easement no matter what the zoning is on that property.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Am I understanding correct as well that because the applicant owns a portion of that, it's included in the zone request change
Correct.
as a whole?
There is, so just to put it simply, there is joint ownership of several properties, and there is an executor of an estate, and that executor is the one that is asking for the rezoning.
Well, I'd suggest we stop calling it a road and call it a driveway.
Yeah, access easement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Richard?
So is that portion of Den Odd, is that included in the master thoroughfare plan?
It is not, no.
But then the 2252 extension is?
Yes.
Okay, it is.
Yeah.
Could you put the the outline of the actual property up again? I'm sorry, I'm getting a little confused by all the squiggly lines and what goes where and who does what to who. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Sam. If you had it, I missed it, the public notice map also included the subdivision just to the right of that.
That was all the properties that were mailed a public hearing notice.
Okay. All right, I've got a bit of a list here. I take notes as you folks speak and as we get, and Sam, you've already addressed the master thoroughfare plan, although my question was the impact of the recent legislation from last year. So we can still, it's been figured out, we can still require right-of-way.
We can require dedication. I think there are cases where the actual construction is still murky.
But we, at the very least, we can require the right-of-way.
I believe that's
Okay.
correct, right? If it's on a funded, the way that the law is written is like if it's funded on a capital improvements project.
Well, that was my question, see, because it talks about funded, and none of these are funded. They're on our master thoroughfare plan, but there's been no funding.
Right.
So, not having heard any updates lately, I was just wondering if, we were totally thrown under the bus, or at least we still had some access to build streets, whether we pay for them, as long as we can get the right of way. Okay. I have a lot of problem saying this property abuts 35 when all it is a 30-foot driveway that goes 35. The majority of the property doesn't abut 35.
Okay.
And Sam, I understand that we're talking about zoning and not a project, but here and I'll be very honest with you. My real concern is everything everything past zoning, platting, master development plan, all that stuff's been delegated to staff. So once we let go of this, we've lost any control we may have over whether or not we think it's right to use a 30-foot driveway. And so I think that's why some of us want to talk about it tonight.
Sure.
And then my concern is, as you said, this will remain a private drive, not a, and yet we're going to all of a sudden, instead of being available to, I don't know, half a dozen or a dozen people, we're going to make this private road accessible to 400, 500, 600 people. That doesn't seem right. You know, I can go on down my list here, but you know, the real crux of what I've heard from these people is I haven't heard anybody argue against the R4. They're all arguing about what's going to happen with that 30-foot right-of-way.
Right.
And Ashley, honestly, it seems like the simplest thing to do here is take that out and provide your access from Wiederstein, and I don't know how you're going to do Rips Chrysler, because that's not your property, but...
Well, if I may, even if this wasn't part of the zoning request, that access easement would still be there.
What?
Even if this wasn't part of the current zoning request, that little sliver of land here,
Right.
it would still be an access easement that these properties would still,
Yeah, but the apartment complex wouldn't have to provide access to it. Okay,
okay.
say. The other thing that concerned me a little bit is we talk about these folks continuing to have access to their homes, and yet, Ashley, one of the diagrams you put up there, I saw that private drive come up and go into the apartment complex with no way at all where that crossroad is now that allows these 2 or 3 homes that are across the top of the hill. I didn't see any access to those. So, but again, the bottom line, who owns it, who doesn't own it, who controls it, that's not within our jurisdiction. You know, it's, and the one gentleman in the back there, it's an issue for the courts to resolve. And the only reason access is even being discussed tonight is because one of your slides showed that the UDC requires that R4 have access.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And honestly, when I first looked at this, I wasn't real thrilled about R4 on Old Wiederstein because most of it, you know, everything to the east or the northeast or whatever direction you want to call that, is single-family residential. But when you look at trying to provide access for, I don't know how many units, I don't remember what you were talking about there. It kind of makes sense now to have something on Wiederstein. Although the last time I was on that road, it's like so much of our infrastructure, it wasn't built to accommodate Belmont and Fairlawn and apartment complexes. You know, it's, although there's one section, I don't remember whether, I think it may be behind Belmont. It's one of those subdivisions where the road was actually widened and improved. But now our legislature has stripped us of that authority. So we continue to build these complexes on basically what I used to call cow trails, okay? You've heard people come in, they're buying homes up there, what's the one off of, anyway, the far northeast up there. That little 2-lane cow trail goes back in there and we're building, I don't know, 500, 600 homes back in there. Now, honestly, I don't know why somebody buys a house. They got to drive on that road to get to the model home. So, you know, it's not like they're buying the thing with their eyes closed. So again, I get off my soapbox. I think the real issue here, for the folks in the audience, what we are supposed to be considering tonight is whether or not R4 zoning is appropriate. We're not supposed to be talking about their project, okay? What happens is, if this were to be rezoned R4, Then the next step is they have to come in and they have to plat the property. Then they have to master plan the property. And at those stages, that's when traffic impact studies get done. And as Sam said, where we look at right-of-way for proposed thoroughfares, all of that takes place after or outside of the zoning process. Because, you know, honestly, I'm not sure R4 is not appropriate for this area. But I understand the concerns of the people that live up there about their little driveway. And I'm sorry, I do not understand how the fire department ever signed off on access to this kind of development on a 30-foot driveway. I can't, you know. I didn't do that.
I'm clear, Commissioner Outlaw.
All right, Brian.
The fire department, talk to me about the fire department approvals for this project that you're referencing.
No, the zoning, but yeah. Anyway.
So help me understand that then. I think as staff, I'm not clear on your statement.
Okay. My concern is trying to access multifamily housing.
Right.
With I don't know how long is Denot Hill? 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet?
Sure.
Trying to access that kind of development on a 30-foot driveway.
Okay.
That's my concern.
Okay, and so just if I may then, so as Sam indicated, when the property comes into plat, the fire department, along with city staff, will look at the code requirements that generally the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended and that City Council has passed and codified. So the rules that this committee has recommended and the City Council has said, staff, you can enforce these rules and you have to enforce these rules. That's what we would look at with platting, right? By the same token, when the property comes in to develop, when we get a site plan, when we get building permits, city staff, including the fire marshal, the fire chief, would again look to those codes and ordinances that this committee has recommended and that city council has passed and that they've said you can and you shall enforce these ordinances, and where in council's wisdom they have granted discretion to the fire marshal to make decisions based on that, they would then review it and make decisions. So to my knowledge, the fire marshal has not made a decision in reference to accessing an apartment complex through Denot Hill. That's not the question that's been presented to them. What's been presented is, again, this question of land use. And as you, I think, noted earlier, what we look at are the various plans to accommodate infrastructure for the proposed zoning and proposed land use and whether that will be sufficient. The timing of those is a separate question that we also look at with regard to developing the property. And so again, I'll point out, we regularly, and you may recall this, have people come into the city wanting to develop a piece of property, and the zoning is in place for it. And we say the zoning allows that use, but here are the development requirements, and they end up walking away because they cannot meet the city's requirements for that access. And so, to my knowledge, the fire marshal has not approved that access. They would look at that when it come in. My assumption is the fire marshal is going to say, you need 2 points of access, and the fire marshal is going to look to those codes that he's been empowered to enforce with regard to fire access drives, I think is the term in the fire code. You'll have to correct me. Is that right? And the fire code that he's empowered to enforce has particular standards for those drives, for those for fire hydrants, for things like that. Now, again, we work as a team at the city, and so the city engineer is going to look at that TIA, look at whether or not those roads can accommodate the appropriate amount of traffic to meet the code requirements that we have at that time. And so again, I think the caution I would have to both folks in the audience and on P&Z is, while the applicant may have kind of talked around how they provide access, they can provide access in whatever manner they have the ability, the legal right to meet the code requirements, right? So it doesn't mean they have to take access from Denot Hill. It doesn't mean they necessarily have to take access from the 2252 extension. They could come up Old Wiederstein Road. In theory, they could buy some of the lots adjacent, and try to take access from some other point, including the Freeway Manor development, right? I mean, there are, not quite an infinite number of ways they could do it. There are quite a few ways they could do it. So the only caution I would have is, even if the applicant at this point were to state, well, we're not going to come up this way, that doesn't mean that necessarily they can't come up that way in the future. And by the same token, they have a number of options to provide access. And so really the question I think that you stated toward the end of your comments is, it's whether this is an appropriate land use. And one of those questions is when we look to those plans, whether or not, and again, this is often the sticking point, those plans for the ultimate road can accommodate the development. And again, we've got multiple thoroughfare roads nearby that there may be other points of access to get there. And so from a staff recommendation, at least, we feel like that infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, things like that, are sufficient for this particular land use, however it were to lay out.
Understand. I got ahead of myself. Thank you, Brian. No, ma'am, I'm sorry. If you have other questions, the staff will be available after the meeting, but I'm afraid the public input is closed for the time being. So, I mean, I even said it myself, Brian. I sat right here and said it's about R4, not about the project. So, I also said just once, I wish somebody could bring us something that half the town wasn't against. It'd make my life so much easier. Anybody have anything else?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Richard.
Sam, from the diagram that's up there now, would I be correct in assuming that from that traffic circle on Rips Chrysler, that little extension belongs to whoever's developing Rips Chrysler at the moment?
Well, Rips Chrysler is being dedicated as a public street.
Right.
But who is constructing that is, yes, the development that's happening right here.
But that little tiny extension, Pat,
Yeah.
okay. To your knowledge, has the developer talked to the school district about purchasing another little sliver to?
Not to my knowledge.
So staff has been approached, and there have been conversations with the school district about the right-of-way dedication.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, mostly just a question, and I think the roads are important because if I'm not mistaken, that's why it was denied by City Council last time. Am I correct?
I think access was an issue.
Well, I'm not gonna like get into that though. So, just,
If I may just set the record, I don't believe the majority of council voted to deny the application.
Correct.
I think the application failed to achieve the supermajority. So just technically to be clear, the majority of council did not vote to deny the application.
okay,
It failed to achieve the supermajority to be approved.
okay.
And again, I would suggest you watch the council video
I was
for
there.
the statements by the council people as to why they chose to vote the way they did. I always hate to get there, but.
Yeah. Well, that actually brings me to my question though, which was, can you show me how it's changed? I know there's more land now being bought. So I was curious if it did extend to Wiederstein. Is that what I was seeing, or?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
So you see where my cursor is right here?
Yeah.
So everything down here was added to this application. So it has access to Old Wiederstein.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
I make a recommendation that we approve PLZC 20240141 as written.
I'll second.
That Danielle? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval of PLZC 2024-0141 to City Council. Just as a last comment, again, the real consideration here is whether or not R4 is an appropriate zoning for the area, even all the other little things we got off on. So, anybody have anything else? All right, please record your votes. All right, I have 6 votes. Would you publish that, please? I have 6 in favor, none opposed. That motion passes. Do we know when this is going to be on the city council agenda yet, Sam?
Tentatively for the first Tuesday of August. That is the first Tuesday of August, yeah.
Well, let me look that up real quick here. So tentatively, that's August 6th,
Yes,
when it will be on the city council agenda. Again, all we do is make a recommendation. City council makes the final decision. I invite you all to attend that city council meeting and restate your concerns. Most of the council members will watch this video and a video of this meeting and will have heard what you have to say. But you're more than welcome to show up and talk to them and speak at them. And hopefully somebody will resolve that Denot Hill issue. All right, thank you. Moving on, item 5B, PLZC 2024-0133, hold a public hearing and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 3.3 acres of land from manufacturing light district to single-family residential district known as Comal County Property Identification Number 75307, and a portion of the property also known as 744 FM 482, City of Schertz, Comal County, Texas.
Thank you, Commissioners. PLZC 2024-0133, zone change from manufacturing light district M1 to single-family residential district R6, Samuel Haas, Senior Planner. So to get our bearings here, the property is outlined in green. It is a portion of the total property here is 4.25 acres, and what the rezone request is for a portion of it, the 3.3. Now, what's currently on the property is it's zoned for M1, manufacturing light. They're proposing to not touch this tract 2 here. What they're proposing to rezone is tract 1 and tract 3. Just want to put that out there so we can follow along here. So on June 21st, 2024, a total of 6 public hearing notices were sent out. We have received no responses so far. 1 sign was posted on the property. So here is that zoning exhibit that I wanted to show you. Again, as I mentioned before, what's currently on the property is M1, manufacturing light. And what they want to do is leave a sliver of the M1, and they want to rezone a portion of R6 for either side of this. A little background on this property. The subject property has a permitted business that operates on the property. There's also a non-conforming residential use. And so, both of which the current property owner owns and operates. The current zoning district does not permit residential uses, and the applicant's intent is to build a larger home. The applicant is proposing to zone just portions of the property in order to allow their existing business that they operate to exist, to continue there, as well as build a bigger home. So again, when we look at these things, we go to UDC section 2154D. And I'll read these off again, one at a time. Whether the proposed zone change or zoning map amendment implements the policies of the comprehensive land plan, including the land use classification on the future land use map. So the comprehensive plan designates this area as mixed use center, which is intended to integrate residential, commercial, and offer entertainment spaces, typically along significant transportation corridors. And just to go back to, if you recall, when we were having our comp plan discussions, the area that we were talking about here for this mixed use is a continuance of this, quote, new town center that we were looking to do in the previous comp plan. The idea was that at some point in time there's going to be rail activity, passenger rail activity. We want to really ensure that we have stuff in our comp plan to ensure that we can capitalize that. So previously that area was really, it's developing now as industrial. That's just what's going on in that area. So what we decided to do was to shift that new town center concept over to this sort of section of the city. And so the goal is to create a mixed use center that should be to encourage denser residential development and complementary businesses. So the applicant is incrementally creating residential density and conforming with the intent of the comprehensive land plan. Number two, whether the proposed zone change or zoning map amendment promotes the health, safety, general welfare of the city, and the safe, orderly, efficient, and healthful development of the city. So the city should encourage development with compatible and surrounding uses. The surrounding area consists of open space, residences, Danville Middle School, and a property to the west is actually zoned for apartment multifamily R4 district. So while this area is currently zoned for industrial uses, it is evolving more to function as a neighborhood. So in order to ensure the safe, orderly, and efficient development, the expansion of the city should be in accordance with the comprehensive land plan. And the proposed zone change better aligns the property than the existing zoning that's currently on there. Number three, whether the uses permitted by the proposed zone change proposed in the zoning district classification and the standards applied to such uses will be appropriate in the immediate area of the land to be reclassified. As I just mentioned, the immediate area is there's a school, there's residences, there's open space, there's even an R4 zoning district just to the west. And the proposed uses that are in the single family residential R6 do align with what's in the vicinity. Number four, whether the proposed zone change is in accord with any existing or proposed plans for public schools, streets, water supply, sanitary sewer, or other public services and utilities to the area. The property abuts FM 482, which is designated as a principal arterial, indicating that this road will accommodate denser development in the future. The property does have access to water. It's a 12-inch line, and a sewer, an 8-inch line that runs along FM 482. A public hearing notice was mailed to Comal ISD to notify them of the zone change. And Schertz Fire, EMS, and Police Department were notified of the zone change, and they have provided no objections. Number five, whether there's been an environmental or economic change that warrants the requested change. There have been no environmental or economic changes. Number six, whether there's an error in the original zoning. There was no error. And whether all the applicants' back taxes to the city have been paid in full. This does not impact the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation to City Council at this time. Number eight, whether other criteria met which at the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council are deemed relevant and important in the consideration of the amendment. Staff has ensured that all UDC requirements have been met for this proposed zone change and at this time have not received any special consideration from the Planning and Zoning Commission or City Council. So, staff, the proposed zone change to single family R6 is more compatible with the comp plan and the direction that we'd like to see for the area. It is appropriate within the immediate area as well, given the R4 that's in the area, as well as the middle school. That brings the property into conformance in the fact that they are trying to build a bigger home, so they need a residential district to do that, as well as continue their existing business that's on the property. So staff is recommending approval of PLZC 2024-0133. And I believe that the property owner is here, if they'd like to say something. Yeah.
Brown at 7444 FM 482.
Maybe Pull that mic down a little bit.
How's that?
There you go.
Okay, J. Brown, 7444 FM 482. And just as Sam stated, we've been on the property maybe 7 years and been living in a smaller manufactured home. Would love the opportunity to build a, just a little bigger house for the family, continue the business, section off, I guess, the south side, also residential in case we want to move a kid over on there or sell it separately, just, utilize the property more for what we can do with it, what the communities are doing around us. And that's basically about it.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is on the agenda as a public hearing. It is 7:19 p.m. And at this time, I'll open the floor for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the commission on this topic, more than welcome to step up to the microphone. Big rush. Nobody. You sure? Nobody. Okay. It is still 7:19 p.m. and public comment period is closed. Commissioners? No questions or comments? All right, this is on our agenda. This is a recommendation to City Council. We can approve, deny, we can recommend approval, denial, or approval with conditions. If someone would like to make a motion.
I make a motion to approve PLZC 20240133 as
Second.
written.
All right, Commissioner Carbone. All right, I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of PLZC 2024-0133. Any further discussion? Please record your vote. All right, I have 6 votes. We publish that, please. We have 6 in favor, none opposed. That motion passes. And once again, this will go to City Council, I'm assuming probably on the first meeting in August. Okay. All right, item 5C, PLSPU 2024. You almost caught me on that one. PLSPU 2024-0112, hold a public hearing to make a recommendation on a specific use permit to allow a monopole telecommunication facility on approximately 1 acre of land known as Guadalupe County Property Identification Number 47083, more specifically known as 120 Windy Meadows Drive, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas.
Thank you, Commissioners. PLSPU 2024012, Windy Meadow Specific Use Permit, Samuel Haas, Senior Planner. So, get our bearings here. Properties outlined in green. We have FM 1518 over here to the west. Windy Meadows is just to the north. The site is 1 acre. There's currently a commercial business on the property, and it is zoned General Business District 2. Just to sort of see what's in the area here to the north, as I said, it was Windy Meadows Drive right away. To the south, east, and west is all General Business District 2, either utilized as commercial businesses or by the City of Schertz. June 21st, 2024, a total of 10 public hearing notices were sent out. We've only received 1 response, and that was a neutral response. 1 sign was posted on the property. So the applicant is proposing to construct a 120-foot monopole telecommunication facility at the rear of the approximate 1 acre of land. Per the UDC Article 8, Section 2186G, placement of antenna facilities, 120 Windy Meadows is categorized as a full commercial property. Full commercial is properties within OP, NS, GB, GB2, M1, and M2, or non-residential plan development zone districts. So, and you'll see this is from the UDC as well. The property is FC here, that's how we classify it. And then if they wanted to do a monopole up to 120 feet, requires an SUP. The applicant has provided a site plan, a tentative site plan here, and you'll see that the existing building is here, and down here where my cursor is where they are proposing to place the monopole. Applicant has also provided some elevations as well, and you'll see right here to the right, this is the proposed elevations for the monopole as well. So UDC section 21511D is where we get the criteria for approval for the specific use permits. Number one, the proposed use of the specified location is consistent with the policies embodied in the adopted comp plan. The comprehensive plan designates this property as industrial hub, and the primary use of the property is not changing. The proposal to add a telecommunication tower is in conformance with the industrial hub land use designation. Number two, the proposed use is consistent with the general purpose and intent of the applicable zoning district regulations. General Business District 2 is intended to further the development of non-residential and light industrial uses, generally oriented towards serving the overall needs of the entire community. The telecommunication tower would help meet the needs of the entire community and is compatible with the commercial and light industrial that's in the area, thus meeting the intent of the zoning district. The proposed use is compatible with and preserves the character and integrity of the adjacent developments and neighborhoods and includes improvements either on-site or within public right-of-way to mitigate development-related adverse impacts such as safety, traffic, noise, odors, visual nuisances, drainage, or other similar adverse effects to adjacent developments and neighborhoods. UDC 2186J2 requires that planning and zoning consider both the appropriateness of the location and design of the intended facility and the aesthetics. Since the surrounding area is primarily higher intensity commercial and with some light industrial activity, this is compatible and does not impact the character of the adjacent developments. The proposed use does not generate pedestrian or vehicular traffic, which will be hazardous or conflict with existing anticipated traffic. The proposed telecommunication antenna will not generate traffic. The proposed use incorporates roadway adjustments and traffic control devices or mechanisms and access restrictions to control traffic, divert traffic as may be needed to reduce or eliminate development-generated traffic or neighborhood streets. The telecommunication tower will not be required to incorporate traffic mitigation methods. The proposed use incorporates features to minimize adverse effects, including visual impacts of the proposed use on adjacent properties. The proposed tower will have to meet all site requirements of Article 9. Article 9 is in place to ensure adverse effects are minimized and mitigated. And the proposed use meets the standard for the zoning district or extent the variations from such standards have been requested, that such variations are necessary to render the use compatible with adjoining developments and neighborhoods. The development will have to meet all dimensional design requirements in General Business 2 as stipulated in UDC 2157. No variations to the requirement have been requested. Number 8, the proposed use promotes health, safety, or general welfare of the city and the safe, orderly, efficient, and healthful development of the city. So UDC section 2186A states that telecommunication antennas shall encourage operators of antenna facilities and antennas to locate them in areas where the adverse impact on the community is minimal. Locating this facility in an area that is surrounded by the commercial and industrial activity ensures that the community impact is minimal, thus promoting efficient and healthful development. Additionally, expanding the capacity of a reliable communication service helps promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the city. Number 9, no applications made under this provision will receive any financial approval to all back taxes are owed. This does not impact the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation of City Council. Number 10, other criteria which, at the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council, are deemed relevant and important to the consideration of the specific use permit. Staff has ensured that all UDC requirements have been met. They have not received any special consideration from Planning and Zoning or City Council. Staff has reached out to the city's consultant who advises Schertz regarding telecommunication antennas, and they have found no issues with this proposed placement of the facility. Additionally, the Federal Aviation Administration and Joint Base San Antonio has reviewed this proposal and submitted a letter of no objection to staff. Staff recommends approval of PLSPU 2024-0112, the specific use permit to allow a telecommunication tower of the subject property, conditioned upon the following. A building permit is approved within 2 years of the adoption of the SUP ordinance. And also, the applicant is not here to be with us today. They have submitted a letter that they requested I read, so you all get to hear me talk a little bit more. Good evening. As myself and my team are unable to attend due to the holidays, which has made planning travel on short notice difficult, I, Ariel Stouter of Fullerton Engineering, on behalf of Verizon Wireless, prepared a statement for our application, specifically to address concerns raised about the proposed tower. We were notified that a neighbor had concerns about the proposed constructions, and we thought of giving some additional information for their benefit. Firstly, the tower will not have an impact on property values, nor will the zoning of the property be changing. As the surrounding properties are all zoned for commercial uses with light industrial as well, the installation of a telecommunication tower will not be detrimental to the property values. The height of the tower was also raised as a concern. Tower height is approximately to the coverage of the carrier. The taller the tower, the further the carrier coverage will extend. This height will also provide other carriers with opportunities to install their equipment on this tower, which would decrease the additional need for additional towers in the area. Please note that the tower will require lighting. To require lighting, the tower will have to be over 199 feet per, please note the tower will not require lighting. To require the lighting, the tower would have to be over 199 feet per FAA regulations. All antenna equipment will be installed in compliance with the laws and regulations established under the FCC. The Randolph Air Base has given their comments and signed off on the tower. We would construct the tower per the drawings provided and with any conditions of approval recommended by the planning staff. Lastly, as the staff report mentions, this development meets the guidelines of the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plans as a compatible use for the zoning designation. The tower will expand Verizon Wireless's coverage in the area and offers the space for additional carriers to co-locate on the tower. The tower will decrease the need for any new towers in the immediate future. Thank you for the consideration of our application for the proposed tower. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Sam. This is on the agenda as a public hearing, and it is 7:30 p.m. I will open the floor for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the commission on this issue, please step forward, give your name and address for the record, and try to keep it to 3 minutes.
Richard Rex, 9915 Marine Meadow, Garden Ridge. I own Stone Care of Texas, 116 Whitney Meadows. I'm the guy right next door who's got the pretty big objection to this. When I got this notification, I went over to my neighbor, Paul Richmond, who owns Richmond Paper. And I said, hey, what's going on with this? You're talking about putting a 110-foot tower right in the back of his building, which is directly next to mine. And where he's proposing to put it is directly up against my fence. Now, it says in here that, this is an acre of land, but if you look on the back of his land, he's got a little carport, and then he's got a bunch of large metal storage units there. I talked to him about it. He said that he had just sold his business, so he wasn't very concerned about it. And listen, guys, I own a business. That building is part of, an investment for me and everybody around there. And the reason there were no objections is the letter went out to 200 feet from where the site's going to be. Trust me, I talked to a couple of my neighbors. Nobody even knew about this. Okay, so just a couple real quick concerns. How Randolph Air Force Base signed off on this is blowing my mind. This thing's going to be 120 feet tall. If you go to my property and his property 3 times an hour, those planes come directly over the buildings. It's just that I can't understand that. I've done more research on RF waves than I ever wanted to and monopole towers. There's nobody in this room or that works for Verizon that can say 10 years from right now if these waves are going to affect anybody there. I got 19 employees in that building. Paul Richmond, who just sold his business, has all his employees in that building. There's 5 Schertz buildings within 150 yards of this tower that your guys' people work in. Nobody seems too concerned about that. I'm not against towers. We need them, I get it. But putting a 110-foot tower in that small of a space right there, I don't get that, I'm sorry. The construction alone on this, how are they going to get that tower up without swinging that sucker across over top either one of those buildings? It's a big deal putting something like that up. It's not like, I mean, there's two pieces of property on the other side of us that Schertz owns. Why aren't they putting it there? This guy's putting it on his property because he wants to lease, because basically he wants to get about $2,500 a month. That's what this is. And where Verizon says it's not going to impact the values of those buildings, come on. Anybody here, if you owned a building and somebody's putting a 110-foot tower right behind it, it's gonna affect it. And it's really gonna affect it, and it's gonna affect my people if something does go wrong with making somebody sick. That's all I got for you. This has been really cool, by the way. This is my first one of these.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Nobody? All right, it is 7:34. And public input is closed. Sam, you have something else? You got a lot of paper in your hand there.
I have copies of the Randolph Air Force Base determination as well as the FAA report.
I'll tell you, I'm a little surprised too. I'm very familiar. No, I'm sorry. If you want to provide some SUPs also go to council.
They do.
Right, so this will be on the council agenda. Private pilot. I ride my bike down in your neck of the woods quite often, and yes, those T-38s seem awfully low to me, but it's all about glide slope or glide path. I can't tell you really how high they are when they come over your building. 120 feet. You think so, Richard? 500 feet? Over 500? Okay. Commissioner Broad's an ex-Air Force instructor. But they always look a lot lower than they are. Again, you know, if we've got sign off from Randolph and the FAA as well, you know, those are the two that really control that. There was an issue in New Braunfels, to just sidetrack a little bit. Topgolf wants to build up there right on that final approach to runway 13. And turns out that the FAA approved everybody's thinking ILS, which I think is 3 degrees. Well, the airport is laid out as 5 degrees. So the height wasn't an issue, even though everybody thought it was. So commissioners, anybody got anything? Because again, the first thing that popped into my mind was Randolph. But they fly, you know, they're a lot more proficient than I am. At least I think they are. Nobody? Nobody. Okay, again, this is a recommendation to City Council. And we can approve, deny, or recommend approval with conditions, which I think is appropriate. Staff has included the standard building permit within 2 years. And so if that would be an appropriate motion, if you want to recommend approval, to recommend it with conditions. So if there's no further discussion, if someone would like to make a motion.
Okay, I recommend approval of PLS PU 202-40112.
All right, would you like to include the condition in that motion? You don't
Can
have
I just
to.
say with conditions? No.
Yes.
I mean, because council's going to do their own motions when they hear it, so. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second from Commissioner Goldie.
That was with the condition, correct?
Is that correct, Danielle?
Yes, correct.
All right, so the motion The motion and the second is to recommend approval of PLSPU 2024-0112 with the condition that a building permit be issued within 2 years of approval of the SUP. Correct, Sam? Does that sound right? Any further discussion? If not, please record your vote. All right, I have 6 votes. If you'd publish that. At 6 ayes, none opposed, that motion passes. And again, this will go to City Council, and I'm assuming probably on that first Tuesday in August. You'll have another opportunity at that time to express your concerns to the people that make the final decision. Okay? Okay, item number 6, requests and announcements. 6A, request by commissioners to place items on a future planning and zoning agenda. Anybody have anything? 6B, announcements by commissioners. I would just like to, I'll take this opportunity to apologize for the confusion about the reappointments. 2020 hindsight, I probably should have given it an extra day and waited till Tuesday before I called anybody, but again, I apologize for that. Announcements by city staff, anything? What have you guys been doing all month? Huh?
Preparing for the July 4th.
All right. Item number 7, information available in the P&Z Commission packets. That's where the staff shows us our current projects that are at City Council and their current status. It is now 7:40 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. John, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. So I called them all Monday and said, hey, we're not on the commission anymore, so you don't have to come Wednesday.